All right, I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer, and member of FINRECIPIC. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Thanks, KP. Position disclosure, I think, is the exact same as yesterday. Some of the position sizes have changed, but the names remain the same. Traded really well today, though, so I guess I can talk about that. I'm happy. I'm happy because I was really upset. I think you guys remember. I was really upset with how I traded yesterday, man. I was beating myself up. I made stupid mistakes. I remember I threw like a total of like $1,700, like just straight in the garbage yesterday. And I was beating myself up about it, like you're supposed to do when you do stupid things. Beating myself up about it. Last night, this morning, told myself I was not repeating my mistakes. I did not. I traded well today, made some money. So let's hop into it. S&P here up 0.85%, and I'm long, so that definitely helps make money. Q's up 0.75%. IWM up almost a full percentage point. Let's go to the big picture charts here of our indices. Is the bull market back? Did it ever leave? Depends, I guess, on the stocks you look at, right? Because I still can make the argument that the market topped in February. Not the actual market, not the S&P. That's been continuing to move higher for the entire year. But there are so many stocks that you can type up, especially any of those speculative type names, that are still significantly off their February highs. It seemed like that's when if the market didn't top in February, it seems like that's when speculation topped and it was back in February. Had a pretty interesting pullback over the course of the last, 3-4 trading sessions, really even longer than that because we were grinding down into it. I know a bunch of us really wanted the big gap down for this morning, myself included. We didn't get it. If we got the big gap down this morning, it would have made for, I think, an even easier trading session because we really could have come in and buy that dip, because at that point we would have been solidly oversold. That short-term tactical sentiment indicator that Pat loves to post would have been solidly in that buy category. And we would have had one of my favorite trades, which is a fearful market that's extended to the downside that has a big gap down. Would have been beautiful. We didn't get it. We had like a flattish open, which I really wasn't too crazy about, but I had some specific stocks that were kind of on the radar today that paid pretty well for me. All the same, you can see here the SPYs had a very small common gap higher. It was like 1.1% or 0.15%, something like that. That was filled in the first 5 minutes, as common gaps typically are. We never broke yesterday's low, and then we just started kind of rallying higher, really taking off around noon. Qs were decently strong. IWM was decently strong. Let's look at these daily candles. Yeah, IWM needs to get back above. It's got 2 negative Maribozus it needs to clear. 225 being the most important level for the Russell. So the Russell's actually only an inside day today, so there's nothing really to write home about. I would say it's not out of the woods yet. It's definitely still in our neutral territory. The SPYs, though, they did close above 446. They did negate most of yesterday's candle. So SPYs are still what I would call, as of yesterday's close, SPYs were in neutral territory. Now I would say that the SPYs are back in bull territory, but they're still kind of in the penalty box, right? We still need to negate that negative Maribozu from Friday for the SPYs to be just kind of full-on bullish again. And the Nasdaq, well, the Nasdaq hasn't given us a single market close that's even been in neutral territory. We've always managed to close above that 375 every day. We dipped below that yesterday again, but closed really strong. So Qs are still bullish, but still a little bit in the penalty box until they negate the negative Maribozu from Friday last week, which they're working on. We saw a lot of bull flow coming into the market today for Apple, a lot of the indices. I think we saw some bear flow coming into like the VIX products a little bit. Pat just came back, so he can correct me if I'm wrong on any of that or provide any extra information. But that seemed to be a lot of what I saw. So, market, I do think with the flat open today was not super easy. A gap down would have been that really easier, better trade that I know a lot of us were looking for. We didn't get it. It is what it is. But a lot of the stuff we have been looking at worked out, I think, pretty well. First, I want to mention the real leader right now is energy. And again, we saw a ton of bullish option flow coming into the energy names today. Once again, I'm a day too early. XLE was on my radar for yesterday as for a buy. And it just had this weak day, and the market was really weak yesterday, and I was just a day too early on that thought process because today it exploded, clearing the $50, which has been the big resistance level I keep talking about with the XLE is $50. We were able to clear it, albeit not by a lot, but it was a big up move. And what percentage is XLE up? XLE is up 3.5%. It's a lot for this sector. So XLE is up 3.5%. Was able to clear $50, albeit not by a lot. It was actually a little bit extended to the upside. Beautiful volume on this upside today. I gotta tell you, these energy names are looking fantastic. XLE Oxy we've spoken about for $27. Beautiful continuation in Oxy. Just fantastic. So it was a day too early on the energy names. I really was not involved in them today. I had other stuff I was involved with. Roblox I was, cautiously buying, starting at around 78.50. So I actually had a decent buy on that pre-market. It was a relatively light buy, but Roblox had bad news pre-market. When a stock has bad news and gets bought up to close flat, that's a pretty bullish signal actually. So. And if anything, this tail below 80 probably shook some people out. They bought it up really well. I know it's still within the confines of this consolidation, so I don't want to overread it, but definitely a productive candle for Roblox that made me a couple bucks. So we got to talk about China. Alibaba was a big focus for me today. I mentioned in the morning meeting, so usually when you have the third test of an area, right, like we were buying Alibaba on this day when it gave the high volume extension hammer capitulation buy kind of set up on the daily chart. We were trading it that day with success. We were trading it when it came back into this 160 area because it got extended again into that 160 area. That kind of gave some success. And now it's the third time. I did not trade it yesterday as it, traded back down to 160. And then it gapped down pretty big today on more negative news coming out of China from the regulatory stuff. The interesting thing about it was, though, that's the third test basically into this area, and it was extended again into it, which that's kind of rare. I feel like, so just a basic principle of support and resistance. The more times the support area gets tested, the higher the probability that it's actually going to break. So the fact that this was testing this area for a third time means that there's a lower probability of it actually holding the area and bouncing like it did today. But part of the reason for that is usually the third test you get, everything is tightened up, so you don't have the same degree of extension that you had earlier. And to be clear, we definitely don't have the same degree of extension to the downside in Alibaba today as we did on August 23rd. On August 23rd, it was, pretty massively extended from this ADMA. But there is, stock trading at 155 with the ADMA at 165, $10 and $165 name. That's still a lot. I traded this Alibaba pretty well, just kind of working into the down move with the same kind of consistent game plan that I had from the previous couple of other days, where I'm actually building into it all the way still versus that 147. If you guys remember, we did a meeting where we spoke about that in the afternoon back here on August 23rd. I'm very consistent with my game plans, and consistency is a key to successful trading. AMC also, by the way, I got paid on my AMC short. Again, even though I was never too heavy into it, I was starting to build heavier, and it came down. My target was really $44. Low of the day today was $43.77. So I cleared out of all of my stock except for the original core position that I still have held from the breakdown of this wedge. I've held it the entire way down to $30, the entire way back up to over 50. But all the same, for this stock also, implementing with consistency the exact same game plan that I've been using every single time it's gotten into the mid 40s, 50s and up into that $60 area, and it's just kind of continuing to have that consistency where I'm kind of playing with the house's money and it's already paid me. Alibaba, is similar. It's like, okay, I made good money on this day into the next gap up. I made good money last time it was at this 160 into this upswing. Let me stick with this game plan that I still have. Yeah, it's the third time testing, which does mean a little bit lower probability of success. But even though it's the third time tested, there still is a decent degree of extension here, and I'm getting to play a bit with the house's money because I made money on it the last couple of times. So just trying to have a consistent game plan and keep executing it. I do still have some Alibaba that I bought today that I'm keeping overnight. Again, not massively heavy. I was able to get a nice intraday bounce back on this thing where I was booking profit into the up move into the second half of the day. What did like JD do? I actually prefer JD to Alibaba, even though Alibaba's been my focus. JD is my preferred company. Early on in the day, it actually did end up breaking $75. Or did it? What's this low here? Yeah, 74.97. Early on in the day, I was watching this really closely into the 75. 75 had a little bit of liquidity on the bid, and I was tempted to take the offer at like 75.12 or so. And I probably would have used a stop loss of 74.99 on that, so I would have kept it tight. And I was like, I don't want to do it. Alibaba still feels really weak. There's strong momentum here. I would rather it break 75, and then I could buy it back through 75, so I'm buying it back on the way up, which is the better trade than buying it on the way down. I can be buying it back on the way up versus whatever low gets put in. And it never actually broke 75 here off the open, so I never triggered myself into it. But JD performed... what's the percentage it was down? Yeah, I think on an intraday basis, JD performed even better than Baba did, and obviously the daily chart's so much better. Think about it. Alibaba is retesting that 155 area for the third time. Well, if JD the equivalent in JD is like $62. Tested it once, worked really well. Tested a second time, worked really well. And now when Alibaba's given this third test down here, JD is still, $15 higher. So it's showing you the relative strength in this stock, and I actually kind of think right now JD is a little bit of a better company than Alibaba. But yeah, I was never able to get involved, even though that's the relatively strong one. Since we're talking about Chinese names, let's also talk about the casinos, which I know are a little bit of a focus because LVS, Win, they both broke down. On news, and there was actually decent trades there. What's that other one that someone asked me about in the afternoon meeting yesterday? It's MLCO. Yeah, that one actually was not as great today as the others. Big volume in that MLCO. I didn't trade Vegas or Win. I know Felipe was all over this LVS for the team, announcing to everybody, guys, I'm heavy, off this second candle of the day into this extension. Fantastic initial trade. Really, it's a 15-minute correction here off the open. Goes sideways for a while, and then rallies again to close. What did it finish down? 1.8%. That's not too bad considering that this thing was looking like a massacre. I think trading below $36 pre-market. Win similar but different. I know Vegas ended up kind of being the focus for some of you guys, and you guys made money in it. But Win would have been okay as well, and it closed with a decent looking candle here, or maybe we get a further snapback because it's extended. I know someone brought up in the morning meeting, I don't remember who, the CZR. I hope you crushed the CZR, because this was a great call out that you had in the morning meeting, and I added this to my own list, my own watch list for the day. Again, I ended up not trading it. I just felt my plate was very full at certain points today because I was building into Alibaba and Roblox and a couple other things that I had, some decent ads on. But yeah, this CZR was interesting because it actually didn't trigger early. Normally on this type of trade, I would want this to trigger early. CZR obviously is another casino, but they're not being affected by the Chinese news in the same way because they don't have the same Macau presence. The trade in CZR that we discussed was a break of yesterday's high, and that actually doesn't happen until afternoon. You also could have been long versus yesterday's low. That's kind of a cheat on the inside day. So you could have been long versus yesterday's inside day low. So if anyone took that paid fantastically well. Though this buy looks really tricky to me. And honestly, the buy for continuation also looks tricky to me because of the time of day. I don't really like the idea of taking an inside and up on the daily chart at noon. Even though we discussed the daily chart is looking really solid in the morning meeting today, the time of day here where it's actually clearing up above yesterday's high is not a great time of day to really be initiating a whole bunch of new trades. So I really don't know. I loved the idea in the morning meeting. I don't know if I actually would have advocated actually taking the trade when it did trigger, because time of day is not good, volume is not good, and I think I even spoke to you guys in an afternoon meeting recently that I was looking at some statistics here for some of the professional traders, and especially the last month or so, because it's August, that's when markets tend to be even the most slow, that a lot of you guys have been actually hurting yourself midday. I probably do 80+% of my trading in the first hour of the day, and then the rest hour of the day is mainly position management. It's not that I never initiate new positions midday. I sometimes do, but it's usually because there's something special happening, like some sort of event or new news or significant volume or something like that was really coming in midday. So if you took the CZR and you got into it, around 12 o'clock today, I'm glad it worked. I'm glad that you made money, but definitely make sure you're checking your premises. You got a really good looking daily chart. You have a market that was acting really strong today. So you've got some things on your side, but you also have some things that were against you. Worst time of the day to take a trade, no volume confirmation. So just make sure you're assessing the trades for what they are. Because again, it's a great looking daily chart. I really like the idea pre-market. I put it on my radar for myself as well. But as far as that actual trade goes, I don't. There's some things that are not to like also. So that was solid. And then the only other thing that was on my radar that I did pretty well with today was this SoFi. SoFi we saw get upgraded after hours yesterday. I was actually trading a little bit after hours yesterday, and then I gave some follow through, but really $16 is the spot. $16 is the spot for this SoFi that really needs to get cleared. It's still 50 cents away from it. So all the upgrade did today was negate some of the damage from the last couple of trading sessions. I really didn't think that this thing should have been able to get back below 15. Yesterday's close was a concern, albeit $14 is the bigger support. And then today was a juicy day for it. Nice wake-up candle, good volume. I already had a swing position in it, so I was able to do well with it. And I also had a couple little ads here kind of early on, basically near lows, to be honest. I think I bought 1466 twice. So I was able to get paid a little bit when it worked. So I think that's all I really got for you guys for today. So I'm happy to answer any questions. That's the recap. Just checking the VTF. Sahil saying maybe JD tomorrow. Yeah, maybe. It's a little bit tougher when he gets back into the moving averages, but I like the relative strength and I like the company for sure, so we should pay attention to it. CZR I spoke about already. Pen here for Rick. 74. I actually didn't realize that Pen. I should have had an alert out for this. I didn't realize Pen retested 74 today. 74 was the breakout level. 74 was really key for this stock to get back above, going back to August 25th. It tailed below that today, but it held the ignition day low, which is definitely what you want to see, and it closed decently strong off that. Obviously, again, the whole market was strong today, but this was 3 big down days in a row, retesting an important level, holding that level, and it's a decent bounce back on it. So this would have been a good trade if you could have found a way to sink your teeth into it, into that $74 area, which honestly, looking at the 5-minute chart, this looks like a pretty tricky buy in the $74 area to me. I think the only way I would have been able to capture this personally is if I was really trading it based off the big picture and using the 73.11, 73.10 as my stop loss. And then you're still taking 80 cents risk or so on that trade, 90 cents risk on the trade, which is kind of a lot for a $74 stock. Albeit it worked out, pretty decently. So that's Pen. That's Pen there. Stefan, what do I think about XLE chart? I think it looks great. This is the best XLE's looked in a while. It's a little bit extended here, which is of some concern. XLE looks fantastic. All that bull flow that came in today, That's what we want to see. You know, money's coming into value. I know some of you guys have been really focused on this XLE and have been waiting for it to try to take off, and it was struggling a little bit with some other value type plays because of the news that was happening in OPEC that was moving oil prices and affecting XLE and bringing it lower. And now this XLE, I think XLE looks better right now than it has looked at any point the entire summer. So definitely something we want to keep an eye on with all those stocks that are in it. Kyle Wheeler wants to know if it's a good time to buy Apple. Yeah, we saw a lot of bull flow coming into Apple today, and it gave a solid bounce back. Is it a good time to buy Apple? It always depends on your time frame. I mean, on the one hand, I would tell you if your time frame's big enough, it's never a bad time to buy Apple. But from more of like a swing trading perspective, I still think Apple looks really difficult. You got to clear back above 150. You know, it was extended to the downside and was able to snap back a little bit. I think that the big picture here on Apple still looks very neutral. Your market looks bullish. The option flow was bullish. So there's definitely some things here to like that can make you believe you can get upside follow through. But as far as the direct daily technicals on Apple, I think that they look neutral with other bullish factors around that neutral feeling. So I would definitely rather be long than short at this point, but whether you want to jump back in like tomorrow morning, it depends on your time frame. It depends on the size you take. It depends on how it gaps tomorrow. If it gaps up tomorrow, I don't like the idea of buying it. But our indices are definitely looking a lot better after today's trading session. From Ernest here, greetings and salutations. Anyone talking about the uranium stocks at the pro desk? Yeah, we chatter about these names a little bit. I don't have too much of a take for you on them. Let's take a look. I know some of the guys bringing up a decent amount, but I haven't really been trading them personally. This DNN is a little bit cheap for me, but it looks fantastic. The 150 clearing was great. Strong day today as well. A little bit extended in the daily chart. Again, it's a little bit cheap for me. I really don't like trading stocks too often that are cheaper than like $4 or so, unless I really think that stock can like double in a very short period of time. Otherwise, it's just a little too cheap for me. I mean, it doesn't move well enough. Wow, look at this UROY today. That's awesome. Now, Pat, you got any thoughts on the uranium names?
That's what CCJ is.
That's what CCJ is also. That's right. Yeah, so the CCJ someone asked me about in the morning meeting, and I thought it needed more time to build out a better setup. I loved this chart setup here. 3-day setup, ending an inside day, right as the ADMA was catching up to the base of the flag. That's money. And it gave great follow-through through 23, right as it set up. Yeah, it pulled back yesterday, gave a little bit of a tail almost into the moving average, but I felt that given this down move and given that it was still kind of extended from the ADMA, that this one might need a little bit more time, and I still kind of stand by that. And this one actually wasn't as strong as some of these other ones that you're having me type up right now, like this UROY. I've never even looked at this UROY before, but this was also a decent-looking inside day and up for a momentum trade through 460 today. It was not on my radar at all. And UUUU definitely does get brought up on the desk sometimes. This Energy Fuels, also a little bit extended. I don't like the setup here as much for today's trading day. Like, I don't know if I'm coming in buying this at 750 today. I think that UROY was probably the best one, and I don't think I've ever even heard of this stock before. So maybe I should start adding it to the radar. But yeah, that's all the thoughts I have. I don't really have too much else for you on that. Yeah, ANY, we also saw a lot of bull flow come into this one. This is definitely one of the squeeze names that we have on our radar. This was another one that got wrecked on the secondary offering that took place on September 3rd. So it's a great lesson on the dangers of being long these squeeze type names when they use the higher stock price as a means to raise additional capital. But it's honestly held up pretty well, all things considered. And today had a really strong day on good volume. Clearing and closing above 750 is the next step for this thing. Such a big move. Someone brought up this ANY, I think, early on today. Now, maybe it wasn't an ANY. It wasn't one of the other crazy names, and it just seemed like it was a little bit too late. as far as the move was when it got called out to kind of get involved from a risk-reward perspective. But yeah, ANY, I mean, the bull flow is so key. I mean, and this is why, Pat adds so much value to ProDesk for so many reasons, and one of them is that he gets that information there for us. Like, he called out that bullish option flow that was a huge bet in Twitter, and Pat's also really good at reading this for us. So he didn't only just post it, he was like, man, this one is serious, this one is significant, and Twitter immediately exploded off of that, gave a little retracement trade for anyone who wanted to kind of be involved in that. Twitter with an inside day and up now into the moving averages. I know that these social media names were really weak today, led initially by weakness in Facebook. Facebook actually had an interesting snapback, and I wonder if any of this Facebook weakness is attributed to the information that I think everybody already knows, which is that Instagram and Facebook are terrible for teenagers' self-esteem. I think it said that, I read the study or whatever it was, that 1 in 3 teenage girls are having negative impacts to their self, their personal view of themselves, whatever the right term is for that, because of Instagram, and it really is bad stuff, to be honest. That's why I'm always, I'm such a hypocrite, right? Because I'm always rooting against this company, but I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I don't really use Facebook that much, but I go on Instagram every day, even if I don't post all the time. So I guess I'm a total hypocrite in that respect, as addicted to it as everybody else. But I'm always rooting against it. Broke a huge level of support. Had a big technical pullback today. I'm actually somewhat surprised to see the degree to which it retraced. Some of it you can probably throw up just to the strength of the market in general. Yeah, I don't even remember what question it was that led me to going over to Facebook. I was probably ANY somehow led to that chatter. We were talking about option flow. Yeah, the option flow in Twitter. It's such an important layer of probability for us to pay attention to. Jorge asking about NVIDIA. Let's take a look at the semis. Yeah, NVIDIA's still holding on to this 220 support on a closing basis. It looks good. It's an area to be long versus. I know NVIDIA just did its stock split, and I still feel like it's like too expensive to really trade a lot. I prefer to trade the other ones. I prefer to trade AMD, which is still expensive, but a little bit cheaper. Though the AMD chart I really don't like right now. AMD's been the weaker one, whereas NVIDIA is managing to at least hold its support really well. What did Intel do today? Yeah, Intel's just such a garbage trading vehicle. It just trades so poorly, but it's still kind of holding that 54.50. I know TXN was brought up in the morning meeting. Yeah, Brant brought up this TXN as an idea, as a breakout today. So TXN actually closed pretty well also. So yeah, Jorge, NVIDIA does look good to me for continuation. It's just a matter of entry and exit, like always, right? It's a matter of how you can enter the position appropriately and how you can have appropriate risk. Like sometimes I'll see beautiful looking charts, and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, this chart looks beautiful. I just have no idea how to properly enter it or where that real proper stop loss is going to be for your trade. And that's kind of how I feel about NVIDIA right now. Like if this thing gaps up to 224 tomorrow morning, I'm not buying 224 and giving it to below 220. I'm just not doing it. It's too much initial risk. I'm looking for things to be tighter. Maybe it actually gave you an opportunity to be involved in it today if you're paying attention to it, kind of, like back through 220. But just looking at this looks so hard. It breaks the inside day low. It gives 1, 2, 3 breaks of 220 before actually working out. Yeah, just really tough. So again, I guess just to repeat myself, like the idea of NVIDIA, the execution just looks difficult. And execution's key, by the way. You can love what a chart looks like, you can love a company, but if you can't get the execution, it's the good execution that really breeds the risk reward. And I'll tell you what, if you have bad execution on a trade and the trade works, it doesn't really matter that you had bad execution. But if you have bad execution on a trade and the trade sort of works, that's when execution matters. Let me repeat that because I think it's important. This is going to be a really important thing for overall month-over-month profitability is execution. If you have a trade that works and you execute it poorly, it works, you're still going to make money. If you have a trade that fails and you execute it poorly, well, you're still going to lose money, but you're probably losing more than you would otherwise, or maybe you're losing the same amount, but you didn't put yourself in the position to make as much because you had to take less stock, right? I think everyone understands what I mean by that, but let me clarify. If you have bad execution on a trade, bad execution usually is going to mean that you're taking more space risk. If you're taking more space risk on the trade, then to risk the same dollar amount, you're taking less stock. But now if that trade works, or the next thing I'm going to talk about is when it sort of works, and you have less stock, that hurts you, right? So execution is just so key. And then the third thing, so we talked about trade just works, okay, fine. You know, maybe make a little bit less, trade just fails, okay, fine. Maybe you lose the same amount, maybe you lose a little bit more. The big factor is what happens most of the time. What happens most of the time? I can tell you for myself what happens most of the time. Most of the time when I take trades, they don't just straight fail. Most of the time when I take trades, they don't just straight work perfectly. Most of the time when I take trades, they sort of work a little bit and then fail. Or they sort of work a little bit and then I can start to trail a little bit and then they fail and I make like a little bit of money on it. Those are the times when good execution is key. Because I'm trying to... I wish I had an example. Let me just make up a simple example using simple numbers. Let's say you're looking at a trade and your stop loss, it's about a $50 stock, and your stop loss is going to be just $49.90. So let's just make this as simple as possible. You're taking 10 cents worth of risk. So if you're buying that stock at $50, then you're taking 1,000 shares, right? And you're risking $100. That's your risk. You want to risk $100, you're buying at 50, stop loss is $49.90, you're taking 1,000 shares. So if the trade just straight fails, you lose your $100. Let's say you had a little worse execution. You bought $50.10, but you still want to risk $100. So now you have 20 cents worth of space risk, so you only take 500 shares. Trade just straight fails. You still lose your $100. Now, let's think about the trade sort of working. Let's say you bought the stock at $50 and you get a pop to $50.30 and then it fails. Well, if I bought $50 and I get a move to $50.30, that was 3-to-1 on my initial risk is what I was in the money on. I'm at least covering my risk, on that. So when the trade fails, my P&L is either going to be 0 or it's going to be a winner. And I got 1,000 shares. So it enables me to take off 500 shares, cover my risk, maybe take off another couple hundred shares so my trade's actually a winner when I get stopped out. Let's say that I bought $50.10 and I'm using that same $49.90 stop loss, but now I'm taking 500 shares. And the trade goes to $50.30, does the exact same thing. So it sort of starts to work and then fails. Well, 1-to-1 on my risk now is $50.30, right? I was risking 20 cents, I'm 20 cents in the money, as opposed to I was risking 10 cents and I was 30 cents in the money. And I had significantly more stock in the first example. So in the second example, if I'm lucky, maybe I'm getting filled at that exact high, which enables me to cover my risk and finish with a donut. But it's also really lucky, really probable that I don't get any stock sold at all, which means that my trade, it just becomes a straight loss to me. That's execution. That is where, why, and when execution and being good at executing your trades actually really matters and pays dividends. It's all the in-between times, right? When it doesn't just perfectly work or perfectly fail, it's that majority of time when it kind of works a little bit and then fails. And that makes a huge difference in your P&L at the end of a month or the end of a year. I also don't remember how I went off on that tangent, but I'll go back to questions, and hopefully that was a good little lesson for today's afternoon meeting. We're talking about NVIDIA, right? Okay. Sebastian here asking about CVE and CNQ. Let's take a look. Yeah, CVE looks great. Energy names are performing really well. This is clearing above its resistance levels. This actually looks even better to me than the XLE. It looks better to me than Oxy. Yeah, thing looks fantastic. The only thing I would say is a little bit extended. So it might need some time before it can give continuation. It looks great. CNQ. Pat, were we seeing flow in the CNQ today? I think we were, right? I think we saw some flow come into the CNQ today also. Yeah, CNQ also looks great. $35, a little bit of a level from back here and closed a bit above it. But yeah, you know, all these energy type names, you know, really look fantastic. The material names also. CLF, I'm a big fan of this CLF, and it was able to catch a solid bid back. X was able to catch a solid bid back. This CLF and X will need to prove themselves a little bit. Robbie Stunks, love the name. Is NEO a good stock to hold? I'm in January 2022's with a put credit spread on NEO, holding 2,000 shares. $45 is an average cost. I'm a big fan of NEO as a company. I think that the stock has actually held up pretty well. They had a negative announcement a couple days ago about the semiconductor chip shortage, and they bought the stock right back up on it. That's all a positive sign. But if you're a bull on the stock, it needs to prove itself by getting above 40 on a closing basis, which it hasn't been able to do. But I think it looks good. I mean, there was negative China news out there today. It held up really well. It had negative news a couple days ago. It held up really well. And I'm a big fan of the company itself. Really like what they're doing out there in China. They're making some good cars. My buddy in China owns one. I got really bullish on NEO back on, was it this flag? I think it was this flag. Maybe not. Maybe it was this one. This thing was just flag continuation, flag continuation, flag continuation, flag continuation. I had always been bearish on this stock since its inception. I thought it was like a borderline fake Chinese company. And then my buddy in China told me he bought one, and that the Chinese government now is really supporting this company, and that they're, you know, really trying to, you know, in the exact same way that here in the United States we try to buy American, right? Like, that's a big common saying. I remember my grandfather, who fought in World War II, you know, he was on the ground in France. He always said he would never buy a Japanese car because, well, he fought in World War II, right? You know, that whole buy American mentality, right? Well, don't think that other countries don't have the same feeling amongst their people. So my thought process has been that I know Tesla actually is still doing okay out there, but I've had a thought process that people are going to be pushing more towards NEO than Tesla. And my buddy, when he gave me his tour, his virtual tour of his car, he was telling me, oh, it's so much better than Tesla, but at a cheaper price. Like, and he totally loves it. And that made me flip the switch on NEO back, I think, on the $15 breakout into this bullish pennant is when I was first getting involved. And we really caught this entire up move on it as a result. I currently don't have a position on it, but I am still really bullish on the stock. I like the company, and it's been holding up pretty well. So that's my thought process on NEO. Rich is asking me, is VITL too thin to trade? It's kind of borderline. $16 stock, $18 stock, you know, it's doing like 400,000 shares a day, it looks like, on average. So it's pretty borderline. I, as a general rule, don't like to trade stocks that have gaps on the 5-minute chart. Like, look at this random bar from yesterday. It's not a bar. The volume on this entire 5-minute bar is 0. So that means that this stock went an entire 5 minutes without putting on a single print. I don't like that from a liquidity perspective. It means that if I have a big position and something were to happen, it might be difficult for me to get out of it. So it's a little bit, it's definitely a little bit on the thin side. So I'd be cautious with it at the least. Yeah, Greg's saying that there was option flow in A and Y today. There definitely was. It was a solid one. Scrolling down here through on the chat. Let's see if I missed anything else. Mike here. General question. How do you calculate risk reward on stocks not at all-time highs? Example, I was looking at Disney, the big bar at 945. I'm probably not going to trade that bar. Then I saw it had more than $1 to yesterday's low, $1 to the day's low. And I thought it could run to the 80 MA at 183.60. I assume you're talking about the daily chart. Yep. So you thought there'd be room to run on the daily chart at 183.60, so it's not a great risk reward, but it would have worked. It ran higher than the ADMA. And it was also technically a red dog reversal. Yeah, it is technically a red dog reversal. I don't like the trade. I think that the daily chart on Disney is really sloppy. 180 is the big level to pay attention to, big picture that it broke out from. I find Disney to be, Disney and Walmart, these two companies are two names that I always love to be long in theory, and I am long Walmart small. But in practice, I always find them to be so difficult as trading vehicles to actually trade. So, maybe if you were thinking bigger picture, it had this breakout on 180, 3 week down days in a row, let me go for a red dog reversal type thing to see if it can get back up to highs. I like the thought process there. For me, as much as that sounds solid, there's also some things in here that I don't like and I think are really tricky. I actually don't like that it's right in between these moving averages. I actually don't like using the ADMA as an upside target here. I actually don't think that the ADMA matters because it's from a pullback that it broke down from. I wouldn't be, if I was going long this thing, if I had a reason to go long, which it sounds like you kind of do, I wouldn't be having a price target at the ADMA because that's just the upper band of equilibrium on this pullback. It just pulled back deeper than that. So I'd be having a price target on this of highs. 187.50 resistance is what I'd be looking at on where I'd want this thing to go if I did take it. And then the other thing is, and that gives you a little bit of a better risk reward on your entry point on your trade. I also don't like this as an entry. Yeah, big solid Maribozu, but there's no confirming volume on it. And it's a big solid Maribozu right into the moving averages and right into a gap fill, which I also don't like. Because the small picture here is telling me that it's going to be difficult on the small picture to get upside follow-through. You did. And sometimes, always actually, the big picture is more important than the small picture. So if the big picture is telling you, pull back and a name that broke out to the lower band of equilibrium, 3 down days in a row, red dog reversal, I'm looking for a move back to, 187.50, and the small picture is telling me, so the big picture is telling me I could get a bigger retracement back to 187.50. Small picture is telling me it's going to be a struggle to get much more at all from it today. Most likely the bigger picture is going to outweigh the smaller picture. And it's going to make it actually easier for the smaller picture to work, which it did. I hope all that makes sense. All the same, I'm probably not taking it. I just want to repeat, I do like your bigger picture thought process if you're really looking at this versus the 180 and the 3-day pullback and the red dog reversal type of thing. I just find that the execution here is going to be really difficult. The volume confirmation and the small time frame, even though the bigger time frame is more important, I find the small time frame to kind of be a difficult thing that's a little bit against me. So, not an easy one for sure, Mike. You got a good thought process, though, overall, that you were able to dissect all that. Mr. Steve NYC, SBLK. I forgot to mention, I was supposed to do a shout-out thing in the beginning of the meeting, so I'll just do it at the end. SBLK. What is this? Star Bulk Carriers? Is this a shipping company? I don't know what it is. Looks good. Right here at resistance, right? 24.50. 24.50 on a closing basis would be really nice for it to get above. So let's pay attention to that. It is. Stefan's saying it is a shipping company, which I know he keeps an eye on those guys. Ocean carrier, dry bulk sector has been strong. Yeah. What's the other one? What's STNG, right? Ooh, it's STNG struggling to get out of its own way. $17 a little bit. The SBLK definitely looks better. SB, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, Mr. Steve. I think it looks good. Let's keep an eye on that for the resistance tomorrow. Sebastian here. When the market opens, do you turn off the pre-market chart? Yes, I do. If you see the morning meetings that I do, you'll see that I oftentimes am showing the pre-market price action in the morning meeting for the SPYs and the Qs and the IWM. Once 9:30 a.m. starts, I just look at during the day price action. And then if there's important pre-market levels, I've made note of them. All right, it's 5 o'clock, so it's going to wrap things up. So I was supposed to mention at the beginning, all right, there's one more here, Workhorse. Workhorse is a heavily shorted name, so we got to pay attention to it. I don't like the company, though, and I don't know if there's been new news ever since they lost that contract. But when they lost that contract with the Postal Service, this thing's been dead money ever since. And yeah, you know, it's heavily shorted, so there could be a squeeze. But what you guys got to remember, and I know that short squeezes have really been a thing lately for us too. A lot of times companies are heavily shorted for a reason, because they're garbage companies. They're not all Bed Bath & Beyond, which I think is an excellent company and is also highly shorted. So this Workhorse, ever since it lost its government contract, it's just been a dog, and it looks terrible. The technicals look terrible. It's breaking new lows. It hasn't been able to get out of its own way. I don't want to be involved in this. The only way I would want to be involved in this is if we actually saw a short squeeze occurring. If we see the volume coming in, the option flow coming in, then you can come in for like a shorter term move where it can, you know, rip whatever 100% in a day like some of them do. Outside of that, I would not want to be a bag holder on this stock. So anyway, thanks, Robert. What I was supposed to say in the beginning of the meeting, so I'll say it now. I'm not going to be broadcasting my afternoon meetings on YouTube next week. I'll say it again tomorrow. Because everyone can have free access to the ProDesk VTF for next week. We're doing one of these open house things. Guys in the VTF know about it because I've done it a couple of times in the past. So basically it's an open house, is what they call it, where any guest is allowed to be in the virtual trading floor for the entire day and take advantage of everything that we're doing, the morning meeting, the news that's getting posted in there, the information that we're providing in real time, and the afternoon meeting, and the normal Q&A. So if you're someone who is on YouTube who's been watching this since I've started posting these afternoon meetings on YouTube, and you're not actually a member of the team, first thing I would say is become a member of the team. Second thing I would say is if you're not, make sure that you sign up for this open house thing for ProDesk next week. You can reach out to info@t3live.com, and you can get all the good stuff for the week on the house. All right, gang. Also, I think they post a new YouTube video today on the Derrick the Trader thing. Was I supposed to announce that also? You know, these people tell me this stuff, and honestly, it goes in one ear and out the other. But luckily, they're probably not listening to me right now. Let me check. Yeah, they did post a new one on here. What did they post? There's 4 now. There used to only be 3. Oh, for a little free open house thing, and I think it was this short squeeze video, which is about 10 minutes long, that you guys can check out. So give this thing 103 subscribers. Come on, guys. There's more than 103 people in the VTF today alone. So subscribe. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Have a great night.